Most investors would buy this flat and trap around £60,000 of their own money in it. Amrit isn't. He's leaving about £17,000 in instead. Same building, same market, completely different outcome. And the reason isn't luck, it's layout. This was a 1-bedroom flat. Amrit is turning into a compliant 2-bedroom flat. Not to flip it, but to refinance almost all the capital back out.
This flat in particular, I wasn't as nervous because the layout seemed to fit and it was a decent size. Even though it was empty, it still looked in decent condition.
Before I show you the numbers, let me show you the layout change. This is the main bedroom on the right hand as you enter the flat. It's already a generous size. Initially, we considered adding an ensuite here, using the pipework from the bathroom next door. On paper, that sounds like adding value, but after speaking to several local letting agents, the feedback was consistent. Tenants in this area prioritize storage and usable space over an ensuite in a flat of this size, so he deliberately chose not to overdevelop. Sometimes discipline increases return more than upgrades. The corridor area houses the water tank. Whenever you're reconfiguring layouts in flats, you need to understand service positions. You can't just move walls without considering plumbing and future access. That's part of keeping the conversion compliant. The bathroom remains in the same location. We're not relocating wet areas across the flat. That keeps plumbing straightforward and avoids unnecessary structural or lease complications. Not every change needs to be dramatic. This is the original living space. The old kitchen used to sit here. We've moved that door and extended the wall to create proper separation. The new kitchen will run along the back wall with the sink under the window. That creates a functional open plan kitchen diner. The key here isn't just adding a bedroom, it's presenting a living space that still feels natural. If the layout feels forced, a valuer won't treat it as a genuine 2-bed. Layout credibility matters. This becomes the second bedroom, and importantly, it's not a box room. It runs the full depth of the apartment. At 55 square meters overall, this was already a generous 1-bed. We're not stretching the space, we're redistributing it. That's why this works. And this is another advantage. It's a quiet position overlooking green space. When you combine location, functional layout, and compliant conversion, that's when you move into a different valuation bracket. This isn't about squeezing rent, it's about repositioning the asset. Because this one decision changes the valuation by around £60,000 to £70,000. Now here's why that matters financially. In this block, a 1-bed sells for around £170,000 to £180,000. But a compliant 2-bed, around £240,000. Same building, same street, different category. The conversion costs, roughly £15,000. So we're not adding value through nicer finishes, we're moving the property into a different valuation bracket. That's a very different strategy. Now, if you don't understand refinance maths properly, this is where people get confused. Let me simplify it. Purchase price, £162,500. After stamp duty, legal fees, freeholder consent and the refurb, the total money in is just under £197,000. New valuation as a 2-bed, £240,000. A 75% loan to value mortgage, that's £180,000, which roughly means £17,000 left in the deal. Controlling a £240,000 asset with £17,000 left in. Rent as a 2-bedroom apartment is £1,350 per month. The mortgage is £808, the management £135, service charge £125. Net cash flow roughly £282 per month, about £3,384 per year. On £17,000 left in, roughly 20% return on the money left in the deal. Not on the property value, on the capital still trapped. Asset reclassification. Now here's the part most people miss. We're not just adding a bedroom, we're reclassifying the asset. As a 1-bed flat, this flat competes with other 1-bedroom apartments. It attracts a certain tenant profile and is valued against those comparables. But once this becomes a genuine compliant 2-bed, it moves into a different category. Different tenants, different buyers, different market, and market price categories. When you can legally move an asset from one category to another, you capture the pricing gap between them. And that's where the equity comes from. Not from nicer paint, not from cosmetic uplift, category shifts, capital comparison. Now compare this to what most investors would do. If someone bought this as a standard one bed and left it alone, they'd need a 25% deposit, that's about £40,000, add stamp duty and legal fees, they're easily at £55,000 to £60,000 into one flat. They own a £162,000 one bedroom that can't be repositioned. In this case, we've got £17,000 left in. So for the same £60,000, instead of buying one flat, you could potentially do 3 of these over time using the same capital base. Not because you're taking more risk, but because you're recycling capital. Most people think scaling means saving more money. It doesn't. It means leaving less money trapped in each deal. Risk. Now this only works if you buy below genuine 2-bed value. The layout allows compliant conversion. The valuer agrees it's a real 2-bed, and the service charge doesn't erode the yield. This isn't about forcing bedrooms in. It's about understanding valuation logic and lender behavior. And just to put this in context, Amrit works full-time. He's not a full-time property developer. This isn't someone doing property 24/7. He stayed consistent, he kept viewing, he didn't jump at the first deal. In the beginning, he actually wanted to invest in Birmingham because the prices looked cheaper. But after running the numbers and thinking about travel time and familiarity with the area and being able to view quickly, he pivoted. Most people think they need more time or more money. Often they just need structure. He realized investing locally was the smarter move for him. This deal didn't come from luck, it came from persistence and applying a framework properly. I caught up with Amrit to ask him about the process. I wanted to understand how Amrit actually approached this deal, what he found difficult, what nearly stopped him, and what changed his thinking. So I caught up with him to talk it through. Before you started with me,
Yeah.
so what was most like confusing or overwhelming at that point, I guess?
Yeah, I would definitely say the numbers, understanding what numbers are important,
Yeah,
what the numbers should actually be. So like, what is a one bed flat here? What is a two bed
yeah,
flat here? Because like understanding what you and then understanding your own finances, as in like, I have
yeah,
X amount of money, so what ballpark range should I be looking in, or what's realistic for me to be looking in? Because then that
yeah,
will affect your whole like, are you buying flats? Are you buying houses? Can you
yeah,
afford to buy down south, or do you have to move up north? So
yeah.
at the beginning, when I didn't have much of an idea what was going on really, I would say the numbers was the biggest thing, I'd say.
Originally, you started looking in Birmingham, right?
Yeah,
And
definitely.
then we kind of like changed and said, oh, actually, let's focus like closer to where you live.
Yeah.
So I guess it'd be like quite interesting to know, like, why did you have that change of heart?
So once I started with you, I was looking for two bed houses in Birmingham, specifically Handsworth, that I could
Yeah,
turn into three bed houses. One, because I have a lot of family in Birmingham, so I was quite familiar with the Handsworth area.
yeah,
And also, the Handsworth houses fit the blueprint where there was the
yeah,
layout to turn from a two bed to a three bed house, because you can't really do that everywhere.
yeah,
And then, so I started doing that. But if I was to go on a viewing, I'd say I'd book it in the week, the viewing. Oh, I can only come up
yeah,
on the weekend. I'll come up on the weekend. By the time I'm going up there, oh, it's already sold, or they've already had
yeah.
like 20 people view it. They've already put their offers in. And I was
Okay.
like missing out on a lot of deals because they'd already
Yeah.
happened, kind of thing. Yeah,
And I think that's the feeling that I was getting as well. That
yeah,
it was difficult to have that kind of momentum, that
yeah,
consistency in terms of like going up there, viewing the properties, and
yeah,
then, for
yeah,
example, like if something, as you say, if something came on a Monday and you booked in a viewing for the weekend, by the
yeah,
time it comes to the weekend, it's gone.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, most of the
Okay.
houses there were in high demand as well. So it wasn't like, oh, there's just a few people gonna go and have a look. There were a lot of people because a lot of people were looking for themselves as well. So instead of just to look to buy to
Yeah.
fix up and rent out, they were looking to buy to fix up and then to live.
In terms of your current project, which is you're
Yeah,
converting a one bed flat into a two-bed flat, what were you most nervous about in terms of this particular property? Or was there anything you were nervous about because you'd seen a few before this, right?
yeah, yeah. So I'd
So
seen a few before this. This flat in particular, I wasn't as nervous because the layout seemed to fit and it was a decent size.
yeah,
Yeah, compared to
definitely.
some of them I've looked, and it looked in quite, even though it was empty, it still looked in decent condition. Yeah, so it wasn't as run down as some of the bad ones I've seen. So everything seemed to
Yeah,
be in order. Like it wouldn't need obviously we've done our works to it, but it didn't need like major works itself. So it was
Mm.
already in decent condition.
Do you want to do this again,
Yeah,
or do you want to do something else?
yeah,
And
yeah,
by that, by something else, I mean, like, for example, like some people, for example, that they want to build a portfolio, they kind of pick one strategy and stick to it.
yeah,
Whereas others actually, after the first project, they realize, well, actually, that was relatively straightforward and
yeah,
pain-free.
yeah,
What else can I do? And like obviously the next stepping stone would be potentially, say, converting, say, like a house into two
yeah, yeah,
flats. So then it's
yeah,
like looking for those houses that meet that criteria. And that's all it is. It's just the kind of shopping list, the criteria just changes. Everything else,
yeah, yeah,
remains the same. So you could argue actually although it's perceived as more risky because you need planning permission,
yeah,
it's in a way less risky because you've got like two exit strategies as
yeah,
well.
yeah,
So
yeah.
you could end up holding two flats, or you can end up selling both, or holding one and selling the other.
Yeah, that's definitely something I might want to try after this one because this one
Yeah,
relatively has been quite straightforward,
yeah,
and
yeah,
this one will definitely give me confidence once it's finished to
yeah,
say that, oh, like
exactly.
you
Yeah,
can do it, or because it'll
yeah.
be the same, like
Yeah.
steps, same process, maybe just a few extra ones because it's two flats. But yeah,
And I know, obviously, in this area, for example, where this flat is located, there was quite a few other ones that like
oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
they're all similar, aren't they, in terms of the layout? So
yeah, similar
if
build.
you
Yeah, yeah,
if you wanted to, you could probably go and find others in that area and like
yeah,
do this project again with your eyes closed.
yeah,
And
yeah,
that's what it's about, really. It's about, I guess, things should become quicker and easier, not harder.
yeah,
And that's the difference. The numbers matter, but the thinking behind the numbers matters more. This isn't about being full-time in property. It's about making better decisions with the time you already have. This deal isn't special because it's in Slough. It's special because of the thinking behind it. Property isn't about buying and hoping. It's about understanding how assets are categorized, where pricing gaps exist, how lenders assess value, and how capital can be recycled. Most investors focus on cash flow. Serious operators focus on capital efficiency. The investors who survive the next 5 years won't be the ones chasing rent. They'll be the ones recycling capital. If you can leave in £17,000 instead of £60,000, you don't just own one asset, you build a scalable portfolio. We'll film the finished result once the refurb is complete, but the real value isn't in the flooring or the paint, it's the structure of the deal. If you want to learn how to analyze opportunities like this properly, the details are below. Otherwise, that's how a simple layout change can completely transform the numbers on a deal.